So it's time to go grocery shopping. You drive down to your local grocery store, grab a cart, and begin walking down the aisles. As you pick up that jar of spaghetti sauce or that box of cereal and put it in your cart, you're making a choice of what you and your family are going to be eating. Well, what if I told you you may be doing more harm than good? Even when you think you're making healthy choices, many foods available to us are a huge risk. If you're anything like me, you worry about the health of your children, or your parents, or yourself. So ask yourself, do you really want to put food in your body, your family's bodies that can hurt you? Well, of course not. That's why today I'm going to tell you about GMO foods. I'll tell you what they are, help you recognize them, and persuade you to choose non-GMO foods. So what are GMOs? GMO stands for genetically modified organism. Genetic modification happens when scientists take the DNA from one organism and put it into another organism. Genetic modification is, according to many definitions, including WebMD, GMO food refers to crop plants that have been modified in the laboratory to enhance desired traits, such as resistance to herbicides or improved nutritional content. So you may ask yourself, why do we have GMO foods to begin with? Well, the answer is pretty simple. I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful if all the crops that we planted didn't have to be subjected to pests or weeds or drought? Well, it would be, but is that a fair trade if the foods we eat now are the same foods that are causing health problems? Now, according to the latest report issued by the FDA in February of 2013, 3 crops, corn, cotton, and soybean, make up the bulk of the acres planted to genetically modified crops. U.S. farmers planted about 169 million acres of these genetically modified crops in 2013, or about half the total land used to grow crops in the entire country. So the report goes on to say that U.S. farmers used herbicide-tolerant, genetically modified engineered soybeans on 93% of all planted soybean acres in 2013. And that is a huge number. And these numbers only represent corn, cotton, and soybeans. That number doesn't even represent tomatoes, canola, sugar beets, and many other foods that are known to be genetically modified. So with that knowledge, we can see that many of the foods that we eat on a daily basis are in fact genetically modified. So according to the Colorado State University Extension Office, the most common GM crops are soybean, corn, think high fructose corn syrup, cotton, and canola. They say it's estimated that 60 to 70% of all processed foods in grocery stores carry at least one genetically modified ingredient. Now that is a really high number if you ask me, and that means that most cereals, snack foods, almost all processed foods and sodas that we consume are made with genetically modified ingredients. So, what are the risks of eating these GMO foods? Well, the absolute bottom line is we really don't know. And GMOs have not been around long enough to study any real long-term effects, and there have been no specific human studies done. And that's a huge part of the danger. WebMD references risks like introducing allergens and toxins to food, antibiotic resistance, adversely changing the nutrient content of a crop, accidental contamination between GM crops and non-GMO crops, and creation of superweeds that build tolerance to these herbicides. And it's also reported in 1980, which is 3 years before GMO crops were first created, that the rate of autism was approximated to be about 1 in 10,000, and that's reported by the Autism Science Foundation. Well, now the CDC shows that as of 2010, 1 in every 88 children have autism. The rates of autism have literally skyrocketed. Now, this could be due to recognition and diagnosis of more cases, but there are many doctors out there who feel autism is tied to GMO foods, such as Dr. Arden Anderson, who is not only a doctor of medicine, he also has a PhD in agriculture biophysics and is one of the leaders in the world of sustainable agriculture. Dr. Anderson publicly states that, quote, it appears that there is a direct correlation between GMOs and autism. Another doctor, Dr. Catherine Paez, she is the principal researcher at the American Institutes for Research. She presents her findings in her research as, quote, since GMO foods have been introduced on a large scale in 1996, the incidence of people with 3 or more chronic diseases has nearly doubled, from 7% to 13%. And even according to our own government's National Institutes for Health, quote, the results of most studies with GM foods indicate that they may cause some common toxic effects, such as hepatic, pancreatic, renal, or reproductive effects, and may alter hematological, biochemical, and immunologic parameters, which really just simply means that that they have found that genetically modified foods can change our genetic makeup. These foods can have ill effects on our liver, our pancreas, our kidneys, our reproductive system, and can alter the genetic makeup of our blood and our vital processes in our bodies. Now, to me, that is incredibly scary. And at this moment in time, our government has fairly loose regulations on genetically modified foods and doesn't require labeling of these foods. So many organizations are currently in the fight to get our food labeled so that we know what we're eating. Just this past Wednesday, actually, Vermont passed Law H-112, which requires mandatory labeling of all genetically modified foods. But they are currently the first and only state to require this label. So how can you tell if you're eating GMO foods? Well, you have to look at the labels. Any foods that contain soy or corn, which includes high fructose corn syrup, or canola, are almost guaranteed to contain GMOs. Now, you can always look for the green USDA organic label. That's the little green label. If it's labeled USDA organic, and it has to say that, not just organic on the package, then it's not permitted to have GMOs in it. Also, there is called the Non-GMO Project label. It's a little blue and purple rectangle. It says Non-GMO Project on it, and those products will not contain GMOs either. So now that I've shown you what GMOs are, given you some information on how to know if you're eating GMOs, and shown some evidence on the risk of consuming GMO foods, I hope that you'll look further into this subject and make the choice to keep these foods out of your diet. And why would we want to consume a product that, according to the Center for Food Safety, in over 60 other countries is either outright banned or requires mandatory labeling? When there are so many things in life to worry about, why should we have to worry about whether our food is harming us or our families? Thank you.